right, guys, we are back with another video. I do have a special guest today that I wanted to introduce, but also let him introduce himself as well. This is a good friend of mine. His name is Avian. He has been a longtime friend, been a longtime friend of mine. And he's a good dude. He's got a lot of good insights, and yeah, we're just gonna talk a little bit. And yeah. So, Avian, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell the viewers a little bit about you.
Yeah, I'm a political connoisseur. I have been involved in many different speech and debate organizations for many years. I do a lot of research on the current political climate and on just a lot of different issues under that realm, whether it be foreign relations or in our nation domestic stuff.
Mm.
And I've researched a lot of theological information, look at multiple different religions across the world, and kind of point out differences in them and learn what I believe about those things. And I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot uh, that not only I have learned, but also that I could still learn from you. And that's not to say you know everything, but at the same time, I still feel like there's a lot that I could learn, and the viewers could also learn from you. So I'm really happy to have you on here. I
Yeah,
have a feeling that you're going to be like a reoccurring guest.
and I definitely don't know everything, and I appreciate that. And there's definitely stuff that I can learn from you too. Um,
For sure, man.
but yeah, I'm just happy to be here and ready to talk about anything and everything.
Yes, sir. One thing I did want to talk about. So you said you are very avid about this. Isn't your words exactly, but like current political and social type of issues. But let's talk about current music and production issues. For lack of a better word. What have you been listening to recently? Anything specific?
Oh, almost everything I listen to. I'm I'm a very eclectic listener, so when I listen to music specifically, I will listen to anything except K-pop and J-pop. So recently, I've been listening to a lot of Mumford and Sons, Don Toliver, kind of everything you could think of. A
Two
lot of
very
Hozier,
different
some
artists
Noah
right
Khan.
there.
Two completely, starkly different artists. Um, yeah, like Hozier, Mumford and Sons, a little bit of sparse Lana Del Rey, maybe every once in a while. Uh, Dominic Fike a lot, the Backseat
That's a good one.
Lovers,
That's a good one.
and a little bit of 21 Pilots.
Also a great one actually. You said you don't listen to K-pop, and neither do I, because it's kind of bad blood. You know what I'm talking about. Um,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
that was something I could never get past, even when
I
things
never
were
listened to
going on.
K-pop even when that was happening, and I made my dislike for it very evident and very clearly.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
But,
so
but
did so did I.
21 Pilots, I believe they just released something new, right?
Yeah, they just came out with an album today. So at 12 o'clock in the morning, they concluded the story that they've been telling. And to basically sum it up, is their world is stuck in an infinite cycle. And this whole time, you're following the story of them breaking the cycle. But ultimately, the cycle still continued. And that's how the story they're trying to tell sort of ended. But also, like, they leave it on a cliffhanger of, like, things could continue, but not down the current path that they're on, if that makes sense.
So, so I mean, I'm not like a super avid 21 Pilots listener, so I don't know. Like, I listened to some of their old stuff that I listened to growing up, but I haven't
Mm-hmm.
followed the story that they've been telling with their music. Um, but I do think that principle is very true, especially in our modern climate, especially with what happened recently
Yeah.
about how there is a cycle that is continuing, and you can look back like talking, and this is kind of going to what happened with Charlie Kirk recently,
Yep.
is that our nation hasn't experienced violence like this over political stuff since the 1960s.
Yeah, I think
And
like
it is
JFK and
it is
stuff like
partially a
that.
reoccurring cycle, but I think that it's also a call to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm. I think this couldn't,
Um,
honestly, this whole album, but specifically the intro song is the end of the story. I don't think specifically that song could have come at a better time for the themes that it's trying to convey.
yeah, and I mean, I definitely will have to listen to it because I haven't listened to it yet. I just got back from the gym um,
You just had to slide that
a
in
minute
there,
ago.
like, yeah, I just got back from the
I
gym.
did, yeah, yeah. I just had to slide that in there, just shameless, shameless side.
That was the
No,
most like airball, the biggest conversation airball I think I've heard in a long time.
hey, I'm not a consistent gym goer.
No,
When I
I'm
do
proud of
go, I
you,
feel
man. Yeah, I'm
happy.
proud of you. I'm waiting to get my license to
When I
get
do
back
go, I feel
into it
happy.
like super consistently. But yeah,
Yeah, I've been told that the clothes that I wear to go to the gym are a little bit f boy.
F boy, is it like a compressed tank top and like gray sweatpants or something like
I've
that?
got I've got a black compression tee and then like the red and plaid pants.
Sorry, folks, we had some technical difficulties, but ultimately we are back. We were talking about the gym and kind of that sort of. That can also be its own cycle, if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean definitely. Um, I mean it's a cycle for people who are trying to get better, and it's a cycle that a lot of people get stuck in. I mean if you look at any gym's profits, they have a profit margin spike that's incredible in the early months of the year because New Year's resolutions come in where people are like, I'm gonna do better, and then they stop going and stop being consistent. So I think it's a cycle that a lot of people fall into of knowing that they want to get better and lacking consistency.
For sure, man. I
And
think another
I
big
think
part of
that
it too
idea.
is
Mm,
like more on the business side is the whole bit of like how gyms will run deals, specifically Planet Fitness. I think it's like in January it's like 1 month sign on, or no, $1 per month, like if you subscribe now, right? So they're like the most notorious one I can think of. But even the gym I go to at my local mall is I think they do run deals around New Year's. I think that's when I got mine.
yeah, I mean there's also like the summer deals that people do.
Mhm.
I think I've been realizing a lot recently, and I think a lot of people have been realizing that there are a lot of things in our culture about gyms or about whatever company it is that they have marketing tactics that are designed to control or pull people closer to buy the things that they're selling, even at the expense of the consumer's health or well-being.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say it's not a negative expense in a gym sense, but
Yeah, no, not necessarily.
yeah, and I mean it can be. It definitely can be, but I don't think inherently it is. Um but yeah, I see stuff all the time of like, and even around the holidays, it's like spend, 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 right? Like that's kind of what every holiday is like that. It's like, oh, get an Easter basket or
Easter
get your girlfriend
candies and the
chocolates
Halloween
or
masks and the
yeah, Halloween costumes. And even though I have nothing wrong with holidays, I think they're awesome and I love pretty much every single one of them to some degree and all for different reasons. It's still a similar thing of what we're talking about of like consumerism and all that and how it's just kind of just wild.
I mean, I think that it's just capitalism at its finest. I think the problem becomes when larger corporations or larger entities like to disguise what they're doing as capitalism, which is a whole other topic. But I think it is just a capitalistic society, which isn't in of itself bad.
Yeah. I think any society in theory, any of like the like capitalism, socialism, communism, like on paper they all sound great in their own rights. Like I could see how all of them work. But once you start to get into the latter parts of a society, and I don't think you can necessarily blame the economic system itself for this, but the people in power who corrupt it, is at late stage they all just fall apart in whatever society they're a part of. you know?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, we're kind of
I mean,
seeing that
without
with
a doubt,
capitalism right
that's true.
now, and one isn't necessarily a solution to the other. But at the same time, it's like, man, because so many people like to tote around the idea that, like, socialism and or communism is, like, better for us than capitalism, and so many people like to look at socialist and communist countries and say that capitalism will be better for them. And it's like, that's just not true. We just need, like, a type of society that we as human beings cannot provide outside of a divine God, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, so truthfully, so there was this book that I was reading. It was by
Okay.
Gary North, and I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I don't think
It's
I've ever
called
heard of him.
Healer of Nations, and it was talking about societies and the way they operate, and about capitalism, socialism, and I think that, well, while capitalism is the best um, model of society that we can have currently, if you look at what a real society should look like without any restrictions, a perfect society, it is less of a it's not a top-down bureaucracy at all. Like right now, we have a top-down bureaucracy. The
Mm-hmm.
way that a Christian society would look like is a bottom-up non-bureaucracy. So it's just a bottom-up nation where basically communities are in charge of communities, and kind of what the founding fathers were trying to create with the states having their own regulation, their own government, but on a much larger scale, where it starts with families, then it goes up to churches, and then governments, and they all deal with their own things like that.
Yeah, and I think they were definitely on the right track, which is with the whole state thing, which is honestly probably why America has lasted so long. Of course, we've had some close calls. Think back to World War II, and even further back to, like, the Civil War, right? Or even the War for Independence, even further back. We've definitely had some close
Yeah,
calls for sure.
yeah, for sure. I mean, when you look at those wars that happened, though, if you even look at now, right? There are problematic things that are arising. There are differences in beliefs, and there is conflict that is coming up in the world. And those conflicts happen in every single nation. The problem is when you disagree with the side and you try to suppress that side, that's when it becomes one of those active wars. And that's when it becomes something where there needs to be a battle fought over it in order to have the victor, which in most cases has been historically the people who support what is right. So the ability to represent ideas that you believe in, the ability to do something that is within your values without infringing on other people, which is why it has lasted so long, which is why we were able to, have the French Revolution, things like that.
Hmm.
And it's why other nations aren't doing so well.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, didn't France just collapse? And France is like a not very great society, right? Like, they are knocking
I
on
think,
the door of, like, the whole aforementioned socialism, communism type of deal.
yeah, so 3 days ago, the French government collapsed again. And it's Macron, and he didn't approve of their choice. It's the left's city in France didn't approve, and because of that, the France's prime minister quit after losing a confidence vote, and that toppled the government, and it put the country in a new crisis.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got everything going on in Nepal right now. I don't know if you've seen much about that, because it kind of happened around the same time that, news was like, oh, Charlie Kirk this, Charlie Kirk that. Um, but Nepal is, like, quite literally on
What
fire
happened
right
with what?
now.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Huh?
Oh yeah, know a lot about that, about what happened. Um,
There were just a ton of riots because they banned social media in that country, and it's basically a dictatorship. Was a dictatorship because most of the people have resigned now in government.
Yeah, and I believe they appointed a female prime minister for Nepal as well, because it was okay. So yeah, I think there was like a fire that happened, and there were soldiers involved.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as my knowledge, I haven't done a lot of research of it, but I believe there were 30 people that were killed and more than 1,000 that were wounded in the clashes
Mm-hmm.
that happened.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of just goes to show that when you leave anger uncontrolled, because there was anger that had been, you know, increasing over the years because of the, worsening youth unemployment and the lack of economic opportunities. So those things that people come to America for, they come to America for economic opportunities, for the ability to gain money,
Mm-hmm.
for the ability to be anyone. Like, it reminds me of the idea of the movie Zootopia, where it's everybody goes to the Zootopia because they can be anything. That's the idea of America, is you can start out in any community, whether or not you have the same starting point, you have the same ability to get somewhere. And that changed in Nepal. People weren't able, there was a disparity between the elite of the country and the regular people of the country. And because of that, it caused a problem with specifically the younger Nepalese, and that ended up creating this peaceful protest that turned into almost a massacre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any African, Middle Eastern, and like Southeast Asian country right now, a lot of them, in fact, I would say like most of them are like pretty much cooked. And I'm not saying that lightly. I know that's kind of like a slang term, but I'm not saying that lightly. Like really and truthfully, not a lot of them are thriving right now.
Yeah, and honestly, what I think is if you look at all of the nations of the world and the geopolitical standpoint of what's going on right now, you can see there's economic downturn and there's problems that are arising with governments being toppled and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that when we've seen this happen before in history, it ended up creating something that was better. So even though it looks bad right now, it's kind of the idea of, when you go to the doctor and you have pneumonia, they say you're going to get worse before you get better. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think it is right now. See people who are fighting for intrinsic rights, for the God-given rights that people have, that our nation has recognized since the founding. They're fighting for that, and it's causing problems with their governments who disagree with that. And so there is going to be fights, and there's going to be deaths, and there's going to be problems. But but as long as people like Charlie Kirk stand up and they fight for what they believe in, when something like what happened 2 days ago happens, it doesn't stop or de-incentivize people for standing up for what they believe in. It creates a martyr, which pushes people to fight harder for that.
Mm-hmm. My dad, I may have mentioned this in my last video. I don't exactly remember, but he brought up a really good point about, I think I did mention this, about how when someone like that is martyred and killed in the way that they are, even if they like just pass away, get in a car accident, but it's not like not like a horrific event by any means, right? It's just kind of like a natural thing.
And
Um,
not intentional.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It ultimately creates two more of those people. Because so many people, the story gets spread around, people get inspired, they start digging deeper, they start seeing, okay, here's what I connect with, and they start creating what was once there, like twofold, right?
So I know what I'm going to do with my life, and I know what my career path is and how I'm getting there. And I've already thought those things out for a long time, for as long as I can remember. And this event is not something that I take lightly. It's not something that I ever thought growing up would happen in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not going to, change my ultimate career goal, it changes the way that I'm going to go about living my life and understanding what I believe in, because right now I know what I believe in, but I don't do as much research as I should on the things that are important, and I don't know as much information about those things. And there are events that are held for like-minded people that I've gone to before, but I haven't gone completely out of my way to go attend those events. And I have developed this mindset of it is no longer it's no longer really like an option to go do those things. It's an imperative to do those things, to go to those
Exactly.
things.
Yeah.
Which is why AmFest in December. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's America Fest. It's held by TPUSA. It's happening in Arizona, in Phoenix. And I am going to figure out a way to attend that conference because I went to a TPUSA conference in Tampa. I got to shake Charlie Kirk's hand
Are you
in July.
serious?
And yeah, I got
I
to
did
shake
not
his
know
hand in
about
July.
this.
And I was there. And I was there for 3 days at that conference. And I have seen many, many people inspired by what happened and driven by what happened. And I don't know what's going to happen with this company, TPUSA. There was an email that was sent out to all of the employees telling them to put all their actions on hold while we figure out what's going on. I don't know if the chair is going to step up. Whoever steps up is going to have a very, very difficult time filling Charlie's shoes. But I know that myself and many others are going to try to go and support that company that was founded by him and continue his legacy in that in December in Arizona.
Yeah. That's really cool. Is that like their next event, or is that just the closest one?
That's their next event is the it's America Fest. I believe in years past Trump has actually showed up, and since what happened, I have almost a guarantee that he will show up this year
Mm-hmm. That'd be cool.
if they still
I'm of
hold
the
it.
opinion that meeting any president, or you know, getting to even shake their hand for that matter, would be one of the coolest things to experience as an American. If I
Oh no,
shook Joe
absolutely.
Biden's hand, I would be like, okay, this is kind of cool in a sense because this is the leader of our nation. This is ultimately the person that God has allowed to lead
I
our
mean, even if you
country for
disagree with them
generations.
as a person, you can still recognize that that's incredible.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and that's what so many people realize. I was talking to a few different people, and I've seen the opinions of some different people of like, oh, this wasn't the Nazi that I wanted to get shot this week, and I'm like, well, I don't want to see anyone get shot. I disagree with Trump on plenty of things, but I would still shake his hand. There's not been a leader of America yet that I wouldn't shake the hand of, like in my lifetime, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
Like I wouldn't shake Andrew Jackson's hand, right? Like who I believe was the worst president that America ever had.
I think that's almost an undisputed claim. I mean, I don't know. It really depends on what you look at and how you, I mean, what your political stance is. Even in the past years of the last administration, there were a lot of negative things that occurred, and it's definitely the worst president in my lifetime. Even though including the economic problems that happened in 2008 under the Obama administration and all the policies that he did.
Here's the
But
thing though, is that Obama was cool. Like he was a bad like I don't like him anymore, but I think it was cool to have that experience of having a president as a kid where all you understand about him is that he's just a younger guy who's got aura, you know? But I
about
think
Trump,
no, Obama.
Obama, oh yeah,
Yeah, cuz and this is what I was talking about with my girlfriend not too long ago cuz she's not like an Obama fan, but she does like him to the extent of like oh, if presidents had third terms, write Obama in type of deal. Um but I'm like hey, like even though I think Obama was cool, playing basketball on like election day and whatnot, like that's awesome. At the same time, I think we look at him through rose tinted glasses because he was the president that was around when our generation was born and as we grew up into our like teen years.
yeah. I mean, I don't have a inclination towards Obama, and I think that's just because I am highly politically involved. Also, shameless plug on the girlfriend. I thought that was funny. I don't. I
Airball, gotta
don't
airball it a
agree
little
with
bit.
Obama's policy. Airball, holy airball. I don't agree with Obama's policy decisions, and I also notice, like, if you look right now, you've got RFK Jr.
Yeah.
right, and there's this thing. It's about the LED lights and about just lights that we have in our house. Obama banned this specific type of lighting, and it's just a health thing that RFK has completely reversed his policy on it. And a lot of Obama's policies have been reversed because they're not helpful, even though they seem to be
Hmm.
or seem to have some sort of value because there's support for them. If you look at actual policies that are relevant nowadays in 2025, in the big 2-5,
Yeah.
there are things that are needed and there are policy changes that are needed that we now can understand things more clearly because we've seen the historical things that have happened with the Obama policies, which were a good idea originally, but now you see the things with the immigrants, what happens there. Obama, I think he did a good job on that. He deported, I believe, 250,000, and he understood that. And so I definitely agree with some of his things. I disagree with some of his things. I don't think that he was a bad president necessarily, even though we have those disagreements.
Hmm.
But I definitely know that what our nation needs right now is somebody who, while polarizing, is as strong as Trump is and is as willing to fight for what's right as Trump is.
I think JD Vance could probably carry that torch pretty well because he's seen the good things that Trump's done along with the bad, and he has the opportunity to be like, "Hey, I don't want to do that. You know, I don't want to do the bad, but I want to emphasize the good." If you've got somebody
And
like
I think JD Vance is a good candidate.
yes, exactly. But if you take someone like Gavin Newsom, right? All he's gonna do is come in and reverse everything that Trump did, and we don't need another reversal right now. What we need is somebody to take the good of what Trump did and say, "I'm not gonna do the bad." You know?
We needed somebody to build off of policies that currently exist. And you can reverse ones that have no value, but a lot of them do have value. And what
Mm-hmm.
Biden did right when he took off, reverse a lot of Trump's policies, and the results that we saw for that from that were cities being destroyed, counties being destroyed, people's ability to live being destroyed because they can't afford things anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just because it's not a political decision. It is a decision made out of disagreement, which is not how any nation should operate ever.
Yeah, I
We
completely
should be
agree.
operating with the mindset of what's best for people and not how do we oppose people we disagree with.
Yeah, I yeah, I completely agree. And even as you're talking about it, things are coming to mind that he did where I'm like, why was that like a thing, and why don't we still talk about it? You think of East Palestine, the Afghan withdrawal disaster, things like that. Excuse me, where it's like, okay, why aren't we still talking about that? That was what initially earned my respect for JD Vance, and the situation of East Palestine initially earned my respect for JD Vance was when he like was on the ground at East Palestine, like reporting things about there that the news wouldn't cover. And I specifically remember him standing by a river, taking a stick and jamming that stick into the water, and a bunch of oil just coming up. Like the water would just turn to rainbow, basically.
Yeah, I mean, talking about coordination, this kind of reminded me of that, and it's pulling a little bit away from JD Vance specifically, but more into those Middle Eastern nations.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the way that our economy is going, and I was watching this CBS News earlier, like an hour ago, and there was a guy on it, and he talked about social media, and he was talking about why people need to be staying a little bit away from social media. They said turn off social media, go hug your family, go do something productive for your community. Have you ever signed up for something and seen where it said accept terms and conditions and just scrolled through it and clicked accept without reading it?
Oh yeah, they're hiding plenty of stuff in there that's like not good.
The thing that I found that was the biggest thing is that when they do that, your your data, your personal information, your name, things about you goes into something called a data set, and they sell that to foreign countries.
Mm-hmm.
And something that happened once is that there was a data set that was sold because of personal information got because people didn't read the terms and conditions, and they used that data to ping a cell phone of a SEAL team operator in Syria, and they used that to ambush them, and it created problems for our military. I just thought that was interesting that most people don't realize like the importance of what we agree to and how that affects our nation as a whole.
Yeah, for sure, man. Uh, I'm in pretty much complete agreement. I mean, I'd like to dig deeper into the actual story you're talking about because I don't really want to take that as gospel, but I do want to look into it more to see if I can dredge up anything. You said it was CBS News, so I could probably find at least like an article about it. Um,
Yeah, I
Maybe.
mean, well, so that wasn't so the CBS News thing wasn't about the data. That was the CBS News was just talking about staying away from the internet.
Uh-huh.
Um, the data stuff you can look for it all over if you just look for foreign exports and data sales. And I mean, this is kind of the thing is I could talk about any issue, but what I'd really encourage people to do is to look into it for themselves. So Google,
Exactly.
foreign data exports and data sets and things like that, and find out what you believe. Read through terms and conditions. There's an article out there that says 80% of people don't read through terms and conditions, and I know that's true of me, and I know it's true of everybody that I know personally. And it's a big deal, even if people won't recognize it as one.
I'm surprised that 20% of people do read the terms and conditions like in its entirety.
Me too. It's like, are you really that bored that you're going to read through the terms and conditions all the way?
Exactly.
It's 80% don't read it at all, 15% skim through it, and then the 5% that's remaining reads through it.
Hmm. Uh,
But most people don't.
I do
Because
want to
why
jump
would they?
topics a little bit. I can probably already guess your opinion on this, and this is something I wanted to talk about tonight and cover in a video eventually. But I figured might as well do it here. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
how do I start this? Do you believe that conception is the start of life?
I do.
Is that
So
like science backed, or is that like more of a personal belief through your faith?
there's a lot of reasons that I believe that, but I mean, this reminds me, an ex of mine disagreed with me on this, and we
Mm-hmm.
had many conversations about it. In the Bible, so this is on the theological point
Yeah.
about humanity. In the Bible, it talks about life beginning at conception,
Mm-hmm.
and it says, actually, I believe the verse is uh, Jeremiah. Well, there's a couple different verses, but Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before you were conceived, I knew you," and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the idea that God knows humans before they were conceived. Um, and then Psalm 139, verse 13 and 16 talk about it too. He said, "You formed my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb." Um, and it talks about why life begins there. But if you look from a biological perspective, girls love baby cows, right?
Yeah.
They love baby cows and puppies.
We had this conversation a while ago, but it was under a
They're
different
the
guest.
argument was under a different a different thing, but the argument against life beginning at conception is that it's not alive because it relies solely on the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Babies, no matter what species it's in, relies on their mother originally, at least for a short period of time. And people wouldn't kill a baby puppy, a three-legged puppy that can't walk,
Yeah.
because it's alive. The same thing. The same thing is true of a child. And I mean, because because what happened, my Instagram feed is just filled with Charlie Kirk reels and a lot of things about that.
Yeah,
I've
same
seen a lot
here.
of disagreements, but moment of conception, there is life formed, and then shortly after that, there's a heartbeat, and a heartbeat signifies life. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think people would typically disagree. But when they do, when people say their biggest argument is that it's not alive and it's not a human because it's reliant. And what Charlie Kirk said in response to that was, "What about people on ventilators, or what about people with disabilities that rely on others?"
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking at it saying that reliance makes it not alive, if you take that ideology and put it in any other circumstance, it's not true there. And the reason that's important is because it creates this inconsistency. And the reason I believe people perpetuate that inconsistency is not because they don't think it's a life, but it's so that they can continue in their actions
Mm-hmm.
without feeling guilty about it.
I would agree. Yeah. Um, Reason I bring this up, and I just been thinking about it a lot recently. Um, Especially like post Charlie Kirk and all that. Is because I'm thinking about it, and I think about cases like the R word and incest, the R word being, the one I can't really say on YouTube. And I
Yeah.
think about cases like that, and people who say, well, like, it needs to be a thing for that. And I'm like, yes, but you shouldn't love it the way that you do. And you shouldn't fight for it the way that you do. Here's why. Is because, well, maybe not the fighting part, but ultimately, what I believe is that if that happens, there should be a route in which the mother can get some clarity for herself. And this is going to sound kind of messed up and maybe inconsistent with what I believe, but I'm still developing my opinion, which is kind of why I'm like, kind of staggered in what I'm talking about. Um, but like, I think it was Ben Shapiro, and I don't really like Ben Shapiro that much. I think he makes some interesting points, but I think he's too annoying and he's too like soy jackable to like actually take him seriously. And there was one thing he said, again, which I don't really take that seriously. I'm going to explain why. Where he says, "Why should the son pay for the sins of the father?" And I was thinking about that, and initially in my mind's eye, I'm thinking, that makes sense. And then when I get to thinking about it a little more, I'm like, well, no, it's not just the son paying, it's the mother as well. If you've got a 12-year-old girl and it's like a 36-year-old man, right? Like, um, that's not okay. And why should she and he or it, like whichever the gender the baby is, ultimately have to pay for what that man did? So I think keeping it open only for those routes, and I don't even know the way you would like go about those types of like screenings, but I think in conjunction with that and with harsher penalties for the R word and incest and stuff like that, that would be a lot better than just having free form abortion, like Planned Parenthoods everywhere, especially in like lower
Okay,
income
so
communities, which they do target.
so there's three things.
Yeah.
The first thing ties back in the amicus brief that was used in Roe v. Wade.
Yep.
It talked about how 90% of doctors and liberals who have performed abortions believe that life begins at conception. So that goes back to what I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that Trump supports what you just said. That's what his policy has been, is
Yeah.
that we should leave it open. The third thing is I disagree.
No, that's
And so
completely
first I'm going
okay.
to talk about what you said, which is that the first thing that you said was that why should the mother or the child have to pay for the sins of the father? I believe that life is a miracle, and I don't believe that giving birth is paying for. So I don't believe that's a punishment.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about it is there's a difference between justice and sinning in order to cover up or in order to fix another sin.
Yeah.
People say two wrongs make a right, and that's not really accurate. Especially like if you're thinking about it, the R word, right? If somebody does that, that is a sin. That is punishable by death. Is a lot of evidence that backs it up historically and biblically as well. However, murder does not justify, or the R word doesn't justify murder.
Exactly.
And I mean, there are methods you can do to take care of that child, where you could put it up for adoption. Your parents can take care of it, whatever it is. But
I don't. Can I break off
but
for
what
a
you're
sec?
doing in that, yeah, no, you're good.
I don't understand why more people don't take the adoption like standpoint, pro-life or pro-choice, you know? Like on both sides, I don't see why more
So
people don't take the whole like adoption adoption argument like seriously or at all, you know?
I assume that you've heard of the, I forget what the word is. The thing that people say about digging yourself into a deeper hole, right?
Yeah. Digging your own grave or something like that.
Yeah, digging your grave where if people are in a hole and they try to dig deeper to get themselves out of it, and it never works.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason, and I mean, you can even see this throughout history in the Bible. If you look at the people who crucified Jesus, they were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And their response to doing something wrong was to crucify Jesus to cover up that. And I mean, in a circumstance where something like that happens, where there is incest or where there is the R word, that creates something that is shameful.
Yeah.
Even for the person who did not commit it willingly, that's still shameful, and it's recognized by most people. And it's perpetuated where people think that it's shameful. And so what they do to resolve that sin is to hide it further. I've experienced in my own life where when I did something wrong, and I think you knew because this had an effect on our friendship, that when I did something wrong, I resolved myself to do more things wrong to hide it.
Yeah.
And that happened over the past year. And what I learned from that is trying to hide sin and trying to hide faults instead of addressing them directly, taking ownership over them, and asking for help, being not ashamed to ask for help. When you do that, it creates only more problems, and it can end up ruining your life. And there's a lot of examples of this. You can see there was a woman, and she was a very sexually active person, and she got pregnant twice, and she committed 2 abortions. And then the third time, the R word happened, and she committed abortion. And after that, she was destroyed because she realized what she did. And even in that circumstance where it wasn't her fault originally, she sinned because she didn't want everyone to know.
Yeah.
And she wanted to keep it private. And because of that, she became very, very broken, and it created a lot of other problems. Now, thankfully, in the story, she became saved, and she recognized what she did wrong, and she was able to be thankful that she would be reunited with her children in heaven. However, couldn't look at children for a long time because it would destroy her. And so I think most people choose that instead, choose abortion instead of adoption, because they're afraid, and I think this is true of a lot of other beliefs. And I don't know how much you know about Calvinism. I'm not getting super into that right now, but there's a lot of people who dislike Calvinism. yeah, we'll say it for another time. But there's a lot of people who dislike Calvinism because of the dogmatism that most people who believe it have, and because of the way that they present it. And I think that people see in our society a few people on the right who are dogmatic and who say that, who are very who point out very specifically that this is wrong, that you shouldn't do this, and not about abortion, just about intercourse and whatever reason that happened. And then there are a lot of people on the left who say, you need to hide this, you need to hide this. And so I think that the ideology that's perpetuated is one of, I cannot show my sin. I must hide it and I must conceal it.
Yeah.
And that's why people resort to that. And then because they're resorting to that to hide their sin, they have to figure out a way to justify that. So they do it by saying it's not a baby, it's a fetus, it's whatever it is. And it just creates this cycle, like we were talking about earlier with the gym and with other things, that is detrimental for the well-being of society, because not only does it damage our ability to grow as a society because we're hurting our birth rates, it also damages people and mothers and obviously children who are murdered because of this, and they don't realize it until it's too late.
Yeah. I'm gonna use kind of an example of what I was talking about, not as like uh not to prop my previously mentioned standpoint up, but to prove what you're saying, because like I'm thinking about it now. And I think it's a lot deeper than I initially gave it credit for. But I was talking with somebody recently about abortion as a whole, and she was talking about getting pregnant in high school, and she's like, "Well, if I ever got pregnant in high school, I wouldn't want to be known as the girl who got pregnant in high school." And I'm like, "But do you want to be known as the girl who got an abortion in high school?" She's like, "Well, nobody has to know about that." And I'm like, "Okay, do you want to take the embarrassment that the people around you would feel for you being a mother in high school and put that entirely on yourself?"
So there's a girl in my church, and she's the pastor's daughter. And
Okay.
last year, in the middle of when everything with me was happening, he got up on Sunday morning, and she was sitting like right in front of him in the rows. And I go to like a big church, so there's like an upper deck and a lower deck. She's sitting in the lower deck right in front of the stage, and he told us that she was pregnant and she was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, part of the if you look in Isaiah 7, I believe, part of being a pastor, part of the requirements for it is that your family and children have to follow under your rules, basically, and that they have to be godly people. And so he talked to us, and he told us that he asked the deacons, and that they said that because he came out with it and he told them openly that this happened, and that he found out that his daughter would be pregnant, that because he came out, because he was open with it, he was allowed to stay in the pastoral position. And so that girl, she's 17. She's 17. She has a kid. She married the guy who got her pregnant. They are at church every Sunday. I see them regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I know, nobody in our church has attacked her or said anything unkind to her, because we understand that children sin and that people sin.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to recognize God's grace, because people sin, and we're called to forgive people for that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why people do it, and I believe that the ideology that people perpetuate is wrong, and that if it were true, and if what people perpetuated was the truth instead of lies, then
Sorry, your mic cut out, but I get what you're saying 100%. I am gonna kind of talk real quick. Um, just
oh
about
yeah,
that as
you're
a
good.
whole, huh?
Yeah, no, you're good.
Do you think that if people resumed their roles in a passionately Christian, compassionate society, that we could probably solve a lot of our issues.
What do you mean by that? Can you explain the question a little bit more?
Yeah, so let's use the example of abortion, right? Like you gave kind of, and I don't know if you did this directly or indirectly, but you kind of gave a contrast to like how the world, right or left, would feel about it versus how people in the church should feel about it. So let's just take that example, right? And do you think that if we society was like, let's say, mostly Christian, like true Christian, not like American Christian, but truly Christian, that theoretically we could solve a lot of the world's issues?
So I think that there's a lot that I could say about a Christian society, and there's a buzzword that a lot of people hear, which is Christian nationalism, and they freak out at that word because they think it means whipping heretics, and they think it means controlling people and forcing people to be Christian.
Yeah.
If you look at what a Christian society is, um, biblically, and I think a lot of people say I would never be a Christian nationalist. That's terrible. And then when they look at what Christian nationalism is for real, without the representation of people who disagree, they go, "Oh, wait, this actually sounds correct." Because a Christian society is one where the leaders of the political regime are basing their policies, and it doesn't mean you're forcing people to be Christian, but if you think about now, we have laws about, you cannot yell fire in a theater because it creates panic. And we have reasons and rules and restrictions on what freedom of speech is, even though we have freedom of speech.
Yeah.
So there's also rules against people, perpetuating, or I guess blaspheming the government. There's a rules against that, about you can't say I'm going to kill the president, you can't say things like that. And so in a Christian society, you would have rules like you can't blaspheme God openly. Now, not to say that you have to be Christian to live in our society, but you must abide by the rules of the society, which is true in any society.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem with most people's understanding of a Christian nation is that people say it's immoral because we forget that morality comes from God. And so if it's in the Bible, which I firmly believe that it is, if it's in the Bible, it's not immoral, because morality, right and wrong, comes from God. It's divinely revealed. I can't say that it would solve every single issue in our society.
Yeah, hence
But what I
the,
can
hence the
say is
emphasis on
that,
most.
yeah, which is why what I can say is that a society that pursues godly goals and pursues truth above all else is far better off than any other society.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree.
Leads to happier people, a healthier nation.
Yeah.
A nation that, I mean, there's obviously a lot of specifics that you'd have to get into how would we interact with foreign nations, and there's a lot about that in different books that I've read. But I think if you're going to think about what a Christian society would look like, you have to first understand what it truly is, and not just the buzzword that people use.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I will say though, I'm sitting on a book bag right now, and my back's really starting to hurt. I think we've had a lot of good conversation tonight, and I
Okay.
really thank you for joining the show today. Your mic cut out. What'd you say?
Said absolutely, yeah, and I enjoy being here and talking about things.
For sure, man. Well, I will talk to you later. Yeah, I think you said a lot of good stuff, and I think my perspective on a few things has changed a little bit. So, yeah, thanks for that.
I'm definitely a yapper.
Oh yeah, I've known. Trust me, I've known. All
All
right,
right, yeah, well,
I'll
thank
talk
you
to you
for
later, man.
inviting me, and I'll
Yeah, for sure.
talk to you later.